Hey, good afternoon, everybody. In 1991, Kim Jordan and her husband Jeff opened New Belgium Brewing in Fort Collins, Colorado. By the mid 90s, probably 4 or 5 years after they had opened, Kim had noticed among employees that there was a big gap in how to make great beer and how to build a great company. She tells the story of asking her staff at the time how much money would be left over from $100 in sales after all of their expenses were paid. The average answer from her employees was $60. She quickly realized that there was a lack of knowledge about running the financial side of a brewery. Her solution was to open up the company's books and begin teaching companies financial literacy. Some of the things they did were like setting company goals of reducing their dollar per barrel cost of goods sold. They taught people to understand the company's financials. Eventually, they made their financial statements, updated financial statements, available anytime on their company intranet. Over 20 plus years, they focused on teaching the financial lessons behind the why of the decisions that the company was making. In the year 2000, Kim sold 41% of the company to an employee stock ownership program, an ESOP. And 13 years later, the company became a 100% ESOP. Well, that is one form of succession, one form of transition for a company. At some point in the future, you, like Kim, like all business owners, you'll decide to exit your business. That exit could be a transition to the next generation. It could be like Kim did with New Belgium Brewing and become employee owned through an ESOP. You could sell to somebody on the inside who wants to carry on the role of the company. You could find an outside buyer. It could be something else entirely. What's important is that to make that succession successful, you have to set the business up for that successful exit. And one way of making it happen is to begin today by involving every employee in the financial management of the business, much like Kim did. It's about setting up your company to be a business of business people. So where do you start? Well, you start with your leadership. It all begins with you and how you lead. But in order to make that happen, there's some core beliefs that are important for you to hold. So we're going to walk through these 6 core beliefs. And as we do that, I want you to think about how you respond to these core beliefs. Do you highly agree with them? Do you not agree with them at all? So grab a pen, grab a pencil, scratch piece of paper. Just write down that number for you as you come through it. So that first one is, if I don't inform my people, someone else will. When people are in the dark, they'll assume the worst. And part of that problem with uncertainty is that it tends to cause anxiety. So informing your people is about honestly sharing both the good and the negative news and the issues about the company. So do you strongly agree with that? Disagree? Somewhere in between? If I don't inform my people, someone else will. Number 2, given the opportunity, people want to learn the business. How's that feel to you? Number 3, provided education, people can learn the business. The point about this is that the numbers that you talk about in a business are really stories about people. It's about the decisions that they make. It's about the actions that they take. So agree, disagree, which end Provided education, people can learn business. Given trust, people will make the right decisions for the business. Where do you fall on the scale of that belief? Number 5, given respect, people will contribute to the success of the business. People can accomplish a lot if they have a common purpose, if they have a higher goal and everyone knows what it is, right? They're all going to go after it together. And if you show them the respect, then they'll contribute to that success. How do you believe that? What do you believe about that? The final 6th one, people should share in the rewards they help create. How's that feel? So, of these 6 beliefs, in relation to them, what are your 4s and 5s? What did you write down? Which of these are really easy for you to accept? Conversely, what are your 1s and 2s? What are really hard to accept? Right? You don't necessarily have to accept them all right now. And, right, you may already be on your way. Think about your own company's beliefs and your values right now. Which of your company's beliefs or values are similar or build on these 6 core beliefs around financial leadership? We've talked about 6 core beliefs. Additionally, in companies that open up their books and share their numbers through financial leadership, there are 4 common traits that leaders will have. As we talk about these common traits, think about one that resonates with you. The first one is vulnerability. A lot could be said about vulnerability. In fact, Brené Brown has written books on it. For now, we're going to keep it really simple. It's about I'm willing to ask for help. That's how we're going to define vulnerability. Your willingness to ask for help. Being able to do that, it takes self-awareness and transparency. In vulnerability is also a currency of exchange for acquiring trust. It's how you build trust in your organization. But in terms of vulnerability, how willing are you to ask for help? Humility, second trait, defined as I don't have all the answers, right? It's themes of admitting when you are wrong. It's about being willing to learn, and it's about asking for advice. Humility, I don't have all of the answers. Servant leadership is our third one. It's about being focused on the needs of your team and the company. It's not about me, all about me. No, it's being focused on your team. A great way to think about this, totally changed and flipped how I thought about leadership when I came across it, is that instead of thinking of the people who essentially work under you, instead of thinking them of your direct reports, think about them as your direct supports. In other words, it is your role and it's your job to do whatever you can to make their jobs easier. It's about creating opportunities, creating the tools, giving the pathways that help and let employees shine. Our fourth one is courage. It's about being ready to open up and release control. This is a big one, especially when it comes around to financials, right? It can be scary to open up. In fact, sometimes the scariness is because you may not entirely understand them yourself. So it's scary to say, I don't even understand these. Why would I let my employees see them? But it's about showing confidence in others and what they can do. And it's about delegating. So as we walk through these 4 different traits, let's think about what can you start doing, right? Pick one of those traits that really resonates with you. Is it vulnerability, humility, servant leadership, courage? What is one thing for those traits that you can start today? Take about 15 seconds to think about it and write that down. All right. So you've got something that you could start doing with one of those traits. What's one thing that today you can stop doing to become a better leader? Whether it's vulnerability, courage, that servant leadership, how do you provide space for people to have more autonomy and authority? Are there things that you are doing that are keeping that from happening? Take 15 seconds and think about it and write down one thing you can stop doing. And then finally, what's one thing you can continue doing? You're likely already exhibiting some of these traits in some shape or form. Be specific. Write down and jot down that thing that you can continue doing in order to keep your leadership strong. All right, fantastic. Now that we've looked at the kind of leader it's important for you to be so that you can set your company up for a progression to succession, let's dig into the three-part framework of what that looks like. So, the first part is about education. It's about knowing and teaching the rules, right? In fact, what are the rules of business? Well, some pretty basic ones are we profitable, right? And so that is an easy place to start. So, as Kim learned, people didn't realize how hard it really is to make money. So she started teaching them. And so ask your people, how hard is it really to make money, right? Her people thought that they made 60 cents on the dollar. So in a survey done of people and the general public, they found that people, the general public, thought that profit companies made was 36 cents for every dollar of revenue brought in. Whew, wouldn't you love to have that kind of profit? Right? It's a little lower than what Kim's people thought, yet it's still pretty darn high. If you're here as a brewery, you probably know that. The median of 212 industries profit is only 6.5 cents on a dollar of revenue. Walmart, their 3-year average at the time that this was done was only 2.4 cents on the dollar. So the question becomes, well, what is your profit number? And do your people know what that profit number is? A great way to show people this is instead of showing them a piece of paper, do a physical income statement, right? If you're a packaging brewery, gather everybody together. Maybe it's in the cooler. Go grab 100 cases of beer. Maybe it's 100 6-packs of beer. Tasting room, maybe you pull out 100 pints of glasses and set them all out on the bar. Whatever it is, go and find a physical representation of what it is that you sell. And then start at the top and say, hey, this represents $1. These 100 items here represent $1 of business, or maybe it's $100. And then pull away the cost of your goods sold. What is that? How many cases of beer are you going to take off the counter? Tell people. This now leaves us with our gross profit. It's with this gross profit that we now have it's from this gross profit that we now can pay all of our other expenses. So go and pull off all of those cases of beer, set them aside. for all of those operational expenses that you have. And that gets you down to what could be now considered your profit before tax. Well, that's of course assuming that you still have some cases of beer left over, right? Maybe you're not profitable right now, right? Maybe there's money that has to come in from the outside in order to keep the support of the business going. So then you now have a great representation to show people what profit looks like and how money flows through the business. Some ideas for teaching cost of goods sold or COGS, right? I've got 3 of them. And if you email me at larry@larry.coach, happy to send you some great ways that you can easily and impactfully teach cost of goods sold to employees. That's going to provide aha moments to them. So let's move on to that second part. We talked about educate. We're going to teach people about the rules of business. The second part is to engage. It's about getting into the action and keeping score. So let's talk about a sport. In fact, pick any sport. The question to answer is, if you didn't know the score in that sport or that game, would you play the game differently? We just completed March Madness last night. Those games, all of them, they're fast-paced. Scoring happens frequently. You could never keep score in your head without a scoreboard hanging up there. And you'd likely never know exactly where you stood or how you should play if you didn't know the score. Let's go to golf. Most professionals out there on the course in a tournament, they're going to regularly check the leaderboard down the stretch so that they can ascertain whether they need to play safe or should they be playing more aggressive. Go back to the 2023 Super Bowl a few months ago. It's reasonable to say that the Kansas City Chiefs would not have managed the final minutes the way they did if they did not know the score and the time remaining. What about hockey? Would teams pull their goalie in the last minutes if they didn't know it was a do or die before the game ended? So you get the idea, right? In all sports, the players know the score at any time. Of course, the fans know the score too. So why do most companies not share the score? Or better yet, in business, why don't they even tell players, the employees, how the game is even played? So in any playing field, it's the players who make things happen. And in business, it's employees who are those players. So just think how much better employees would play the game if they both knew how to play the game because they understood the rules of the game and they knew what the score was at any given time. By educating your employees about the business, you teach them how business works and you share the score with them in real time, all the time, right? Go back to Kim and the story at the beginning. At one point, they started putting the updated financials readily available at any point in time on their company's intranet. So when everyone learns to understand the company's score and how to impact it, when everyone knows how to play, you can adjust your plays to improve your performance. And it's just like any sport or game that you've ever watched or played. So the question is, are your employees fans who only know the score? Or are you going to treat them as players who can actually change the score? And when we think about the score and what that looks like on your scoreboard, it's really about being forward-looking. It's about making forecasts. It's about deciding what are you going to do into the future in order to impact the score, right? The rear view mirror, yeah, that's important. That's about reporting the numbers. A lot of companies will say, yeah, we open up our books to our employees, yet all they ever do, they don't teach them about them. And then all they ever do is they look backwards. But can you change what happened in the past? No. So it's far more important to look out of that bigger windshield into the future than it is to be looking back. And something about scoreboards, right? Scoreboards can be your big company scoreboard. Maybe you're showing your profit and loss statement, how you're doing on that. But teams and departments can have their own scoreboard. Individuals can have their own scoreboard. The key thing about them is that those scoreboards provide a line of sight into how what each person in the company, how their role has a direct impact, line of sight to the greater goals of the company. And another part, all of your games, right, that we talked about, the scoreboards are readily seen and readily available. Make scoreboards visible, right? Here's a picture of a company's P&L statement, profit and loss statement, that is hanging in the break room on a whiteboard where everybody can see it day in and day out. It's got to be visible to everybody. So let's get to that third part. And it's about energize. And you energize people in this program, this methodology, by providing them a stake in the outcome. So there's a lot of different areas that we could talk about here. We can talk about giving recognition to people. We can talk about short-term rewards for successful improvement challenges. We could talk about the difference between gain share versus profit share. We could even talk about long-term stakes like an employee stock ownership program, like Kim eventually did with her company in New Belgium. Today, though, we're going to talk specifically about why bonus plans fail. Why do bonus plans fail? Well, we've got a few reasons. One is what we call the Santa bonus. It's discretionary. People don't know what they did to earn it, and they don't know what to do in the future to get it again. It just kind of shows up. Next one is the rocket science bonus. These are bonuses that are really difficult to understand. They're difficult to calculate, and people just don't understand how it comes about, so they just don't get into it. So it fails. What about the dogfight bonus? This is what comes about when you have internal competition, right? It's either one side wins, meaning the other side's going to lose. And when one team wins or one team loses, that's what starts to create silos. So it's really important to have everybody on the same page, because if they're not, there's a high likelihood it'll fail. What about the lotto bonus? This one, a lot of times leaders take great pride in this one, right? Because they've done all this work. They've designed the ultimate bonus plan. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread. But employees believe the odds are against them. They come to work every day. They keep scratching the tickets. Yet deep down, they feel like there's no way that they're ever going to get that bonus. Finally, what bonus? This is all about communication, right? You put a bonus system in place, and then you do a really poor job of communicating that there is even a bonus, and people don't even realize that there is one. So it tends to fail. In fact, this no communication, what bonus, reminds me of the author Patrick Lencioni. He will talk about the role of leaders, and probably a better term for them is to be the chief reminding officer, right? It's your job as the leader to communicate. And about the time that you are extremely sick of saying the same thing over and over is right about the time that people are beginning to grasp and understand what you're talking about, right? So bonus plans will fail if people don't know about them. So there are 7 building blocks of an effective bonus plan. And if you'd like that, happy to send it to you. Again, email me at larry@larry.coach. So we've now talked through the three components of this framework. It's about educating your employees about how the business works. It's engaging them to be players to really impact that score and to know what the score is and to keep track of it. And third, it's about energizing them, providing them a stake in the outcome, because it really goes back to, right, that sixth belief that we mentioned early on, is that people should participate in the success they help create. So all three of these things wrap around the final piece of the framework. And that final piece is the critical number. And so, what is that critical number? Well, the critical number is the one thing. It's the one thing that is going to have the greatest impact on your business. It's the one thing that you must achieve. It's the one thing that clearly defines winning. And it's that one thing that everyone can have a direct line of sight to impact in some way. A lot of times, profit before tax, or your EBITDA, throw around a little financial term there, might be that one thing, might be that critical number, because those are numbers that everybody can impact. And so, why is a critical number important? Three reasons. The first reason is that a critical number provides focus. If everything is important, nothing is important. Giving people a long list of goals is like not having any goals at all, right? You can have dozens of performance measures, dozens of targets. You can be driving hard to achieve all of them, yet in the end, it won't really help you get results. Just like one of the most important jobs of you have as a leader is to set the agenda by communicating, there's that word again, being that chief reminding officer, by communicating the top priorities of the company. And one of those top priorities is going to be your critical number, because it's that one thing that you must make happen, right? You simply can't do everything. Both experience and research tend to back up that those who prioritize with a focus on less rather than more will achieve far more of their goals, and they'll be far bigger goals. So that critical number provides focus to your organization. Second is that critical number provides a common goal. We talked about this a little bit earlier. It's about that one reason why bonus plans fail. You start pitting different teams against each other. You've got different goals. And it's really important that everyone have the same set of goals. And I'm talking about this in terms of company-wide, in terms of one big goal. Yes, different departments, different individuals might have different goals, yet it's those individual goals and those team goals that actually drive that line of sight to that common goal that everyone wants to achieve together, right? The reason we want it common is that we don't want to send people mixed messages on what's most important, right? Turn success into a team effort by giving everybody that same big objective, right? So that they have to work together to achieve it. So in this way, you either win together or you lose together. So that common goal is what the critical number helps create. The third reason that a critical number is important is that, well, we're going to wrap it around education, right? It goes right back to that first tenet of educating people, teaching people the rules of the business. You want to educate people about how your business makes money, teach people what it takes to be successful. And the critical number provides that learning opportunity. It helps people see the everyday processes of running a business and what creates success. So you heard at the beginning that New Belgium became a 100% ESOP company by 2013. And it was made possible because through financial leadership and open book management, New Belgium's employees were able to begin thinking and acting like owners. It really highlights a rule of business that if you go back to my fall 2022 CBP talk, we talked about 14 rules of business. One of those rules is that stock isn't a magic pill. Simply giving people stock or ownership in a company doesn't automatically translate that they're going to begin thinking and acting like an owner. In order to make it happen, you have to educate people and you have to engage them in the process of becoming business owners. Now, that's not to say that you're going to always give people ownership of stock in the company. There's an ownership culture that is created when you begin educating and teaching people and involving them and giving them a stake in the outcome. In fact, New Belgium taught their employees the rules of business and showed them how their roles impacted New Belgium's success. You likely know there's more to the New Belgium succession story than just that 100% ESOP in 2013. Because roughly 6 years later, in 2019, the ESOP sold to Lion Little World Beverages, a subsidiary of Kirin based in Australia. But here's the point, is that over the life of that employee stock ownership program, employees, both past and current at the time, had earned over $190 million from that in ESOP. And a huge part of that was because they understood what it meant to be an owner through understanding the financials and being able to go out and play that game of business. And then at the time of the sale, there were 300 employees that earned more than $100,000 from the sale of that ESOP to Lion Little World Beverages. So the question for you today, what are you going to do to start your progression to a successful succession? If you'd like to know more, certainly reach out to me, Larry.coach. You can reach me at Larry.coach. My number, 515-450-7853. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today and learning how you can set your company up for a progression to a successful succession. Have a great day. Cheers.